You can give her the world, build her dreams, and still lose her because women don't stay for what you do. They stay for what they feel when they're with you. Emotional truth is the foundation of every deep and lasting connection, and yet it's the one thing most people overlook when they try to love someone. When we talk about women and what truly keeps them loyal, it's not the grand gestures, the gifts, or the sacrifices that hold her heart. It's the emotional truth that lives beneath the surface, the way she feels when she's around you, the energy you carry, the atmosphere you create with your presence. Emotional truth isn't about how much you do, it's about how deeply you make her feel safe, understood, and emotionally seen. Because no matter how much effort you put in, if she senses emotional emptiness, she will start to drift, not because she wants to, but because her spirit can't survive where it doesn't feel nourished. Women are naturally emotional beings, not in the sense of weakness, but in depth. Their hearts are wired to sense energy, tone, intention, and authenticity. She might not always articulate it, but she feels when something isn't right. When you're pretending to listen, when your words don't match your energy, when your affection feels more like duty than desire, she notices. Emotional truth isn't just about being honest with her, it's about being honest with yourself. If your love is built on performance rather than presence, she will feel the difference. She doesn't want to be loved through tasks. She wants to be felt through connection. The truth that moves her heart isn't what you say you feel, but what your energy communicates when no words are spoken. Men often mistake action for emotion. They believe doing more means loving more. But the emotional truth says otherwise. You can do everything right and still make her feel wrong inside. You can provide everything she asked for and still make her feel unseen. Because emotional truth isn't about the surface. It's about resonance. It's about whether your actions align with genuine care, whether your tone carries warmth, whether your silence carries understanding. A woman feels safe when she can sense that your emotions are stable, authentic, and present. She becomes loyal when she knows she can rest emotionally, when she doesn't have to guess how you feel, when she doesn't have to fight for your attention or compete with your distractions. Emotional truth is what separates connection from convenience. It's not about impressing her, it's about making her feel real when she's with you. When your presence allows her to breathe without fear, when your words feel grounded and not rehearsed, when your love feels like a reflection of truth rather than obligation, that's when she stays. Women are loyal to the energy that heals them, to the space where they can be vulnerable without being judged. Emotional truth is that invisible thread that ties two souls beyond logic or circumstance. It's what makes her heart trust that your love isn't just a phase, but a home she can return to again and again. Perception over action means understanding that what someone feels about what you do often matters more than what you actually do. It's a quiet truth that shapes every relationship, especially when it comes to how women connect, love, and stay loyal. You could be doing everything you believe is right, working hard, providing, showing up physically, yet still lose her emotionally. Because while actions are visible, perception is emotional. And women live more through feeling than through observation. She doesn't just see your actions, she interprets them. She reads meaning into your tone, your timing, your attention, and your intention. What she perceives becomes her emotional reality. If your efforts don't translate into emotional presence, she won't feel the depth of your love, no matter how loudly you express it through physical acts. When a woman feels misunderstood or unseen, it's rarely because you did nothing. It's usually because what you did didn't align with what she emotionally experienced. You may think you're showing care by fixing problems, by taking responsibility, by providing stability. But if your energy feels distant or transactional, her perception tells her you're detached. The difference between action and perception is emotional connection. You could send her flowers, but if she senses guilt instead of love behind them, she feels emptiness instead of affection. You could spend the whole day with her, but if your mind feels absent and your attention scattered, she won't remember the time. She'll remember the disconnection. Women don't attach to acts. They attach to emotionally meaningful experiences. Perception is built on subtle signals, tone, energy, timing, and emotional transparency. When she perceives authenticity, her heart opens. When she perceives inconsistency, her walls rise. The most painful truth for many men is that good intentions don't always translate into emotional safety. You may think your actions prove loyalty, but perception is filtered through emotion, not effort. If she feels like she's not being prioritized, her perception becomes her truth, even if your heart meant otherwise. It's not manipulation or sensitivity. It's emotional wiring. She processes love through atmosphere, not checklist. What matters is not how much you do, but how deeply your actions make her feel valued, secure, and understood. This is why two men can do the same thing for a woman, yet she responds differently to each. One might make her feel cherished, while the other makes her feel pressured. The act was the same, but the perception was different. It's not about quantity, it's about energy. Women are drawn to emotional clarity when your actions reflect emotional alignment. If your words, tone, and presence harmonize, her perception anchors in safety. But if there's a gap between what you do and how you make her feel, confusion replaces connection. Perception is the lens through which love is experienced. And when it becomes blurred by inconsistency, even the most genuine actions lose their meaning. Presence is not about being physically there. It's about being emotionally available in the moment. It's about the energy you bring into a room, the calm you radiate when everything feels chaotic, and the attention you give when someone needs to feel seen. For a woman, presence carries more weight than words, more impact than promises, and more comfort than gifts. When a man is truly present, his silence speaks louder than his explanations. His eyes communicate safety, and his energy says, "I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." That presence is what makes her exhale the tension she's been carrying. It's what allows her to let go of her guard, to stop pretending, and to exist freely in her softness. Presence creates connection because it tells her that in this moment she's not invisible, she's not competing for attention, and she's not being tolerated, she's being felt. True presence doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand that you have everything figured out. It only asks for honesty and focus. When you listen without distraction, when your attention is not divided between her and the world outside, when your emotions are not clouded by impatience or ego, she feels that. She senses when your mind and heart are fully with her. Presence is power because it gives what money, status, and effort cannot, the gift of emotional safety. It's the stillness that says, "You matter right now." It's the depth that reminds her that she's not just heard, but understood. And when a woman feels understood, she opens up in ways she can't when she feels like she's talking to a wall of indifference. Most relationships fail not because of lack of love, but because of lack of presence. People stop showing up emotionally while still being there physically. They go through the motions, say the right words, perform affection, but the energy is hollow. A woman can tell when your attention is forced, when your comfort is conditional, when your presence is distracted by other desires. You can be sitting right next to her and still feel 1,000 miles apart. Presence is what fills that gap. It bridges the emotional distance that actions alone can't. Because when she feels your focus and awareness, she feels your love, and that feeling stays long after the moment is gone. Presence is also power because it's rare. In a world full of noise, distractions, and superficial attention, giving someone your full awareness is the highest form of intimacy. It's saying, "You're the only one that matters right now." It grounds her in trust, and it grounds you in authenticity. It's what transforms ordinary conversations into moments of connection and ordinary time into emotional memory. A woman remembers the way she felt when you looked at her and truly saw her. She remembers the silence that didn't feel empty, the embrace that didn't feel rushed, the moment she knew your focus was her anchor in the chaos around her. Emotional alignment is the invisible rhythm that keeps two people connected beyond words, logic, or effort. It's when both hearts move in the same emotional direction, even when life feels uncertain. It's not about agreeing on everything, but about feeling understood without the need for constant explanation. When emotional alignment exists between a man and a woman, communication flows naturally, conflict becomes easier to navigate, and love feels peaceful instead of draining. But when that alignment starts to fade, everything begins to feel off. Words start to hurt more, silences feel heavier, and love starts to feel like work. You can still love someone deeply and yet be emotionally out of sync. And that's when relationships quietly start to crumble, not because of lack of love, but because the emotional frequencies no longer match. For women especially, emotional alignment is the foundation of loyalty. She doesn't need perfection. She needs to feel that you get her, that her emotions don't have to be justified or minimized to be accepted. When she feels emotionally aligned with you, her heart relaxes. She feels seen without judgment, valued without performance, and understood without having to translate her feelings. It's not that she wants you to fix everything. She just wants to feel that you're with her emotionally. Alignment doesn't come from agreeing on every issue. It comes from being emotionally present enough to sense what she's feeling, even when she can't put it into words. That's what builds connection, not logic, not control, but empathy. When emotional alignment breaks, you can feel it before it's ever spoken. The conversations start to lose depth, laughter feels forced, and moments of silence become uncomfortable instead of peaceful. She begins to pull back, not because she stopped caring, but because she no longer feels emotionally safe to express herself. When you can no longer meet her where she is emotionally, she starts to feel alone even in your presence. And that loneliness inside a relationship is one of the most painful experiences anyone can have. Emotional misalignment often happens quietly through small misunderstandings, unspoken disappointments, or moments where empathy is replaced by impatience. Over time, it turns love into distance. To build emotional alignment, you must learn to listen beneath her words, to feel the emotion behind her tone, and to care about what's not being said. It's about showing up with awareness, not defensiveness, with curiosity, not control. It's understanding that sometimes her emotions are not a problem to fix, but a signal to connect. When you align emotionally, you stop reacting and start relating. You stop hearing her as noise and start hearing her as a human trying to be felt. Emotional alignment is what makes a woman trust your presence because it tells her that she's not in this relationship alone, that you're not just there to be heard, but to understand, that her emotions can coexist with yours without chaos or withdrawal. Peace over performance means valuing emotional calm and genuine connection over constant proving, pleasing, or performing for love. In most relationships, especially from a man's side, there's often an unspoken pressure to do more, to fix, to provide, to show love through visible effort. But what many fail to realize is that while action is necessary, peace is what truly holds a relationship together. A woman will never stay where she constantly feels anxious, unseen, or emotionally unsettled. She doesn't want to live in a cycle of grand gestures followed by emotional withdrawal. She wants peace, the quiet, steady kind that comes from knowing that love doesn't have to be earned every single day. It just has to be nurtured. Peace is what allows love to breathe, while performance often suffocates it under the weight of expectations and exhaustion. When a man is always performing, he's not truly present. He's constantly trying to prove his worth, trying to be enough through actions instead of being real through presence. And while that may impress her for a while, it doesn't sustain her emotionally, because peace doesn't come from effort. It comes from emotional balance. Women crave the kind of connection that makes them feel grounded, not pressured. She wants to know that your love doesn't come with conditions or constant displays. She wants to feel that you are her calm, not another source of emotional turbulence. When you're trying too hard to perform, she feels the tension in your energy. It tells her that your love is driven by fear of loss, not by peace of heart. Peace is what allows her to trust. It's the stillness that says, you don't have to prove anything, you're already enough. When your love carries that kind of energy, it becomes healing. She doesn't have to overthink your words, doubt your intentions, or question your loyalty, because the peace in your presence answers all those questions silently. Performance-based love, on the other hand, keeps both people in a constant state of uncertainty, one performing to be enough, the other waiting for peace that never comes. It becomes a cycle where love turns into obligation and affection becomes a task instead of an emotion. When you choose peace over performance, you start valuing connection more than image. You begin to show up as yourself, not the version of you that's trying to impress or control the outcome, but the version that simply is. Peace is not passive, it's powerful. It comes from emotional maturity, from knowing that presence speaks louder than perfection. When you bring peace into a relationship, you bring stability. You give her a space where she doesn't have to defend herself or compete for love. You remind her that love doesn't have to hurt to feel real. And in that calm, she finds the safety to be vulnerable, the courage to trust again, and the desire to stay where her heart can finally rest. Love's foundation isn't built on words, attraction, or effort alone. It's built on emotional stability, trust, and understanding. It's what happens beneath the surface of all the beautiful moments, the unseen structure that holds two hearts together when everything else begins to shake. Most people mistake the intensity of love for its strength. They think love is about the highs, the passion, the affection, the excitement. But true love is measured by what remains steady when the emotions settle. Love's foundation is not about how much you can give when things are easy, but how you show up when things are uncomfortable, uncertain, or quiet. It's the unseen bond that whispers, I'm here when everything feels fragile. Without that inner stability, even the most romantic gestures lose their meaning over time. For a woman, love's foundation is emotional consistency. She wants to feel that your love doesn't vanish when life gets complicated, that your affection doesn't fade when she shows her imperfections, that your care doesn't disappear when she challenges you to grow. Love's foundation is built when you stay emotionally grounded, even when she's emotional, when you choose patience over pride, and when you listen instead of defend. It's not about never arguing or disagreeing. It's about handling those moments without destroying the peace between you. When a woman feels that kind of emotional security, she doesn't just love you, she trusts you. And trust is what allows her to love you without fear. The strongest foundation in love is created not through grand promises, but through small, repeated acts of emotional responsibility. It's when you show up on the days you don't feel like it. It's when you choose to communicate instead of withdraw. It's when you allow honesty to replace ego. Because love doesn't collapse from one big fight. It breaks down slowly when people stop feeling emotionally safe to be real with each other. When she can't express herself without being criticized or dismissed, she stops opening up. When you stop listening with empathy, she starts protecting her heart. That's how love begins to erode, not from lack of effort, but from lack of emotional grounding. Love's foundation is also about emotional self-awareness. You cannot build something stable with someone else if you are unstable within yourself. The peace you give comes from the peace you live. The consistency she needs comes from the discipline you build within your own emotions. When you know who you are, what you feel, and how to communicate it, love stops being chaotic. It becomes a shared space where both people can grow without fear. That's the essence of a strong foundation. Two people who know that love isn't about perfection, but about alignment, not about control, but about understanding, not about performance, but about emotional truth. Love's foundation isn't seen in moments of passion. It's felt in the quiet assurance that no matter what happens, you're both still standing on the same ground.